All right, so I don't think there is a team this coming season. Y'all can let me know if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a team this coming season that is more easy to root for than the New York Knicks. It's funny because there was a stretch where they were like the most laughed about franchise. Like there was that post Carmelo Anthony stretch from like I think like maybe 2016 up to like 2020, 2021, where they were just so bad. Actually, like 2019, where they were just so bad. There was like nothing to believe in. People had no idea what the front office was doing. Then you enter Julius Randle and the Tom Thibodeau era. Now there's a culture that's established. And then Jalen Brunson comes in. And then now we've got Josh Hart up here along with Dante DiVincenzo. They have this really good core. Last year in the postseason, it was just difficult to root against them because, for one, those guys I mentioned, like Jalen Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Hart, they had chemistry with one another because they were former Villanova Wildcats, former Villanova teammates, and things like that. Now they've got something on top of that. Not only do they have this ridiculous culture, but the talent matches up to it. So last season, they were a great team. Yeah, Jalen Brunson, who was an all-star and, in my opinion, was one of the 10 best players in the NBA, and had a really good set of role players around Brunson in the playoffs, kind of counting out Julius Randle because he was hurt. That's not like a championship roster just yet. This coming season is a championship roster. That's Mikal Bridges. That's Julius Randle back for another year. And then there's still those guys that were like non-all-stars, but like these super high-tier role players like Hart and like DiVincenzo on top of that. So they have this perfect blend of amazing on-paper talent that fits together. Bridges fits with Jalen Brunson. Julius Randle fits with Mikal Bridges, right? Those guys fit perfectly with one another. There's good enough star power here that fits, and there's also a culture. And so what we've seen throughout the NBA the last couple of seasons is we've seen like GMs build these teams and try to win just based off of the idea of we're more talented than these other teams. They fall short because there is no culture or identity established. So I always use this as an example. Look at the Phoenix Suns last season. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. That is an amazing trio. Those are three top-tier offensive players, even though Beal didn't play like that last season. And hopefully he can turn it back on this coming season because I'm a huge Beal fan. But that's an amazing trio. Reason it didn't work is because, for one, Beal was hurt, so it was tough for them to establish chemistry. But there was no identity. There was nothing that this team did well. There was nothing they can kind of hang their hat on. There was no real culture here. How many times have we seen that happen with like these super teams? I would argue that's like a major reason as to why a lot of those super mega teams always end up falling short, because it's either injuries, it's one of like their three best players, or there's no culture established. And the Knicks have found this perfect balance, one of the best balances in the league of having this influx, this amazing amount of great talent between Bridges, Brunson, and Julius Randle. Three guys who could end up possibly being all-stars this season. With Bridges, he can definitely be in the all-star conversation, being in this market and playing with this team. And on top of that, just having this super strong culture. I think they have one of the most talented teams in the Eastern Conference right now, as far as fit and just everything kind of put together. They've got guys who can specialize in many different areas. They also got much deeper at the point guard position with getting Campaign and also drafting Tyler Kolek from Marquette, who I think is going to have a great career. They've got that, and they also just have one of the best identities and one of the best cultures in the entire league. Everything for this team just really fits super well together. There's just an amazing culture, an amazing style of play. As I mentioned, they know they're still going to hang their hat on the defensive end despite the influx of offensive talent they got this summer. I love this team. I think they have something right now that even if it doesn't work next season as far as winning a championship, down the road, this thing is going to be just perfect. They found this formula after years of us not knowing what the hell is going on. And I know there are like a bunch of different things happening from a front office standpoint, but it's just funny seeing like that change in how we thought about the Knicks maybe about 6 years ago to now, where now they're just so hard to root for, and we can literally see them win a championship within the next couple of seasons. And I don't think people know how big that's going to be to like see a championship back in New York. We haven't gotten that since the 70s, and they did have a finals appearance back in like the late 90s, but it's been a long time since this team has been like at the apex, right? Now they're back to being a team that I think we all legitimately believe in, because even when Melo was there a few years back, right? Or not even a few years back, maybe about 10 years ago, people kind of had their reservations about Melo as a player. where people weren't ready to give them championship contender love. And like I said, on top of that, there's also the reality that the Heat were just that much better than everybody else in the Eastern Conference. That's not the case here for this Knicks squad. Everything this year just fits so perfectly together. And I also want to give Tom Thibodeau a ton of credit because he is the reason why the culture is established here. Like, everybody knew. I like seeing when things work out perfectly. Everybody knew when Thibodeau got here, they were going to be a defensive-minded team. And it's stuck and it's worked. After so many seasons of the Knicks trying to get these coaches who could establish these identities, and nothing stuck. Most memorable fail as far as bringing in a head coach was Derek Fisher. Everybody kind of thought, oh, Melo in the triangle, that's going to turn him into Kobe or something like that. Like, everybody thought it was going to work because Derek Fisher played and won championships in that triangle offense and everything. And there was that dynamic where at that time, Phil Jackson, I think, was the GM, and it just failed, right? Like, you want to bring in a coach who's going to establish a strong culture. No one has done that better, in my opinion, in the NBA over the last couple of seasons than, for one, Eric Spoelstra. Always going to give him credit for that. And also Tom Thibodeau. Like, he completely changed the way this Knicks team focused on things. And that's why they have been so good the last couple of seasons. I'm excited to see what they end up doing. I think they're just as good as anybody in the Eastern Conference, barring any injuries. They have the wing defense to counter the Celtics. On top of that, they have so many great offensive options outside of Jalen Brunson, so you don't have to worry about his usage and everything come postseason time. I mentioned it before. They got very deep at the point guard position, getting Tyler Kolek and also getting Cameron Payne, who does have a lot of playoff experience as a backup point guard. The thing with Julius Randle is that now, with Bridges being more of a priority on the offensive end, which I think he should be, I think Thibodeau would be making the wrong decision by prioritizing Randle on offense over Bridges, especially with how much Bridges showed to be a good solid shot creator last season. This allows Randle to focus more on other things, right? Like, Randle is a guy who can go get 20 points a game, but is he optimized at that? I think Randle is a guy who, if he focused on other things, being a really good defender, really good rebounder, he could be like a perfect Swiss Army knife player. So I think the way Randle is optimized is as like a high tier role player, not as like a primary shot creator. Yes, he does create a lot of gravity and can open up his opportunities for other teammates with his ability to kind of draw double teams. But I think him at his best is as like this Swiss Army knife guy. And hopefully with Bridges being here and being more of a priority on offense, that pushes him into that role. And I really think that's going to unlock the Knicks offense to a major level this coming season. So a lot to be excited about for the Knicks. As I said, I think they're the most easy team to root for this coming season. I don't see how you can hate on the Knicks. They've got the fan base. They've got the environment. They've got this great core, a bunch of likable guys on that team, and they just work from a basketball standpoint. Those guys just fit. They just make so much sense as a basketball team. I'm so excited to see what they end up doing this season. Again, even if it's not this season where they end up becoming a championship team, maybe it's next year, but they built something strong enough to be legitimate contenders and to end up winning a championship sometime down the road here in the very, and I mean very near future.